So warm welcome to another LinkedIn Behind the Badge live interview. Today with Alec Joannou from ABB. Alec, great to see you again.
It's so good to be here with you, Michael.
You are a global CIO of ABB. You won the CIO award. You're a great philosopher as well. Very interested in Ubuntu, which is I learned South African philosophy. We will talk about that later. But let's start with the Swiss CIO award. You won the CIO award. What was the experience? How did it feel when you received this award?
I must say, Michael, and a big thanks to you and to the whole of Confare, it was very special. And maybe if I put it a little bit in context before I share my emotions, is that 5 years earlier, I won the South African CIO award. And I must say, I saw what it did to my team. It really uplifted them. The fact that they got recognition from an external party made a huge difference. And getting the Swiss award was really timely because at the time, I mean, ABB is a lot bigger. At the time, 150,000 people that worked for ABB and a lot more complex. And we were going through some really difficult times. And that award came right in the middle of that in terms of how we were turning all the difficulties into successes. And that just gave the team such great momentum, that external recognition. And I've told you and Barbara that you shouldn't call it the CIO of the year. You should call it the CIO team of the year. And then the one last thing I have to say that I was incredibly proud because, I had some tough competition and it was a real honor to be on that stage and looking around and seeing the depth and the quality of this region's CIOs.
It was great that you joined the jury as well. What is this kind of experience now looking at other CIOs and IT teams and exploring their learnings and findings?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity because, like anything in life, even when you're mentoring people, you get that reverse mentoring. So going through the submissions, you're learning a lot, and the diversity of companies and the sizes of companies. You're getting companies of 200 people, and then you're getting companies of 30,000 people. And you're getting different ways of looking at IT strategy, different reporting lines of CIOs. So it's been wonderful to get to learn that. And actually, every now and then you get to say, hey, that's interesting. Why aren't we doing that? So it's one of the benefits getting, but it's also wonderful to give back. And unfortunately, I'm leaving at the end of this year, Switzerland. I'm not sure I can be part of the panel, but it is one thing I would miss because it's important to always give back. I always say, as a reigning champion or the reigning CIO, I was only supposed to do it for 1 year. And I said, I don't mind doing it every year because it's important to give back.
One thing I learned doing this CIO award over 20 years in Austria now and 15 years in Switzerland is how much the personality of the CIO really forms the strengths of an IT department. One is more oriented on leadership, or on technical excellence, or on transformation and disruption. So it's really interesting to see how the CIO really makes a difference.
I agree with you 100%. But there's also, we're doing the discussion now. There's also the point of, what was a CIO like 15 years ago? And that they were completely technology focused. There's three things that I was thinking about what has changed in 15 years. Now you have to be business focused. You have to understand the business. You have to talk business talk. You have to interpret and translate technology into business benefits. That's one big difference. The second difference, and I'm laughing because the second difference in the old days, they were saying, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but they said you can never be fired for buying IBM or SAP.
Of course.
Right? Right now, it's so difficult to make decisions, and we have to make decisions. Technology is changing so quickly. So CIOs are forced to make decisions, and they have to make it very much on data, but also on gut. It's very different from the past. And then my last point, which is I'll put the punt in for Ubuntu already, even though we're going to talk about it more later. It is a CIO and is all about people. If you think about it, everything that we do centers around people. When we talk about transformations, when we talk about change, when we talk about growth, you can only grow when you change. And you can only grow by going through transformations. And if you don't start to think, the first question you have is, how does this transformation impact our people? Instead of what technology will we do or drive to impact this transformation? Well, then you've lost the prize. And that's what we used to do 15 years ago. Now we think to ourselves, first the people, understand how they're going to go through the journey of transformation. How do we take them safely from where they are today to where they're going to go in the future? And the technology is just the enabler. And I think that that's a fundamental difference to how CIOs used to think and how we have to think today.
Some used to say the CIO should be business enabler, but as you mentioned, technology is the enabler. The CIO is the business partner.
100%, 100%. And it's funny, it's never changed. If you think about any transformation, you need the four elements. You need its people, process, data, and then technology is the last one. So if you think about, nothing has changed, and everyone's talking about AI, it's the same thing. You know, you have to think about the people first. How does the process change? You know, what is the data that I need to drive this AI? And now how do I enable it? Nothing has changed. It's quite frightening.
What hasn't changed as well is that most people start with the tool and think about the people at last.
and then the IT costs go through the roof, the benefits aren't there, and everyone goes like, oh, you know what, the IT budgets anyway.
But as you mentioned, the complexity of the role is increasing. Decisions are rather hard and difficult to make. How do you cope with this immense responsibility and different efforts you have to make?
I think that a number of things. One, I love what I do. And I know it sounds like overplayed, but I really do love what I do. And there is pressure. I'm not going to lie about it. There's huge pressure. But if you're the type of character that I am, you can actually turn that pressure into a positive energy and actually thrive in it. So that's one of the coping mechanisms I have. I have my own definition. I think everyone's got their own definition of work-life balance. Mine is very much, and we spoke just before we started the interview about your family. I've got four children, all of them boys. And for me, family time is non-negotiable. And that is, you know, when I'm with them, I'm completely present. And that helps me a lot. And then the community, I really rely a lot on the community. I'm an eternal optimist. And that whole Ubuntu thing of I am because we are. I love community. So the Confare community is a good example. There are communities within ABB. There's a South African community. There's a Greek community. So for me, that gives me positive energy, interacting with people all the time and learning. I mean, I learn more probably, you know, from an IT perspective by talking to other CIOs than, you know, reading up or going to conferences. For me, it's really important to stay connected with other people. And you actually get the truth, because a lot of the time people tell you, you know, you go to a conference and you see someone doing this wonderful thing and you go, wow, how did you? And then when you find out, they go, no, we actually haven't really done it yet, but, and that's when you get the real story, and it's really great to exchange. So those are the three things that keep me going, and I enjoy it.
ABB is such a huge organization. What were the reactions on this CIO award in the company, but externally as well?
I think there's three elements. So if we think about when I won it, the first is, as I said, there was huge pride within the company, and that was really nice. I mean, so much so that, you know, the executive committee bought me a bottle of champagne, and it was waiting for me on the table the morning thereafter, and I really appreciated it. But the ecosystem was also amazing. All of our partners, you know, all of our service providers heard about it through LinkedIn, through various channels. And they equally deserve the credit because of the fact that, whatever we achieved, they also helped us to achieve it. And it was so nice for us to get that. I think the third one's a bit of a funny one, but a lot of people questioned why I wasn't working for ABB when I was in South Africa. So when I was appointed, it was a bit of a shock to the system. And it was twofold. One, that I wasn't an ABBer, and the second one was that I was a South African because, we're supposed to be a third world country and backwards. And I think the award was the first data point for some of those people to actually say, actually, maybe they did make the right decision. Maybe it wasn't the wrong decision. It's the external party that actually is saying that he's good at what he does. It's not himself.
When I see your LinkedIn feed and talk to you, you often refer to Ubuntu, the philosophy of Ubuntu, and a sentence that's quite important in Ubuntu is "I am because we are." What relevance does this idea have to modern IT leadership?
Yeah, so I grew up and I didn't even know what Ubuntu was. But I've realized now that it's been part of my DNA. And if I look back over my career and look at all the achievements I've done, I've actually done it through people. I'm always the first to recognize I could never be as successful as I have been without surrounding myself with people that are probably better than me. And I think that that's an important thing. Always surround yourself with people that are better than you, that can take your job as you go on, because they'll make you famous. And little principles of Ubuntu, the thing of showing gratitude, things of planting trees long before you need to know where the shade is going to be. There's a couple of really great Ubuntu sayings like that one. So, and in IT, it's incredibly important from an architecture perspective. You have to think 5 or 6 years ahead. What is my infrastructure? What is my technology landscape going to look like? And you have to start making investments now. It's too late in 5 years' time. So I love that saying, you plant the trees before you know you need the shade. And the other wonderful saying that Ubuntu has is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. For me, both of those sayings are so typical of my leadership style and the way I work and of Ubuntu. And once again, as the post says, I actually was talking to a friend of mine, a colleague actually, and a very good friend, and we were talking about what Ubuntu is. And she told me, she believes in Taoism. And that also got me thinking about what Taoism about, that idea of acting without force. So I think all of us have got elements of different philosophies that actually make us up. And I think that a successful CIO has got a combination of those kind of philosophies that make technology work.
What role do patience, humility, listening play in effective leadership? It's not always connected in our minds that they are important.
So what is leadership without those things? I mean, it's like there's no such thing as leadership. So for me, they're fundamental, and it's fundamental to leadership. It's foundational. I mean, it's absolutely foundational to Ubuntu if you think about it. Everything that you've just said, and I think that to make it real, I'll never forget when we had an IT crisis. If I look at thinking about patience, when you're going through a crisis, you don't want a knee-jerk reaction. You have to sit down, be calm, think about it. There's a little bit of patience before you act. I think that's incredibly important. I think listening is so important. During that crisis, a lot of the times, very junior people were giving brilliant ideas on what we need to do to fix the situation. And it was, in a normal hierarchy, it's unheard of for a CIO to be listening to someone 6 levels further down.
Yeah.
But that listening ability and being able to actually take that data and make decisions from it is incredibly important. And I think the humility part is kind of, it's a difficult one because I am writing a book and I'm going to punt the book, but in the book, I think that one of the lessons that I've learned in life, sometimes I'm too humble and the humility is too much. And that isn't good for me or my team. So I think humility is very good. I hate arrogance, But at the same time, when your team does well, don't be shy to advertise it. And don't be shy to go and tell the business how much value you're adding. Because when it comes to budget time and they cut the budgets, it's because you were humble and the humility was there. So humility is one of those things that I think we all have to have, and it's a key leadership quality. But at the same time, you should use it sparingly in certain parts.
I find this quite interesting because giving awards to leaders it seems to be something that has to do with pride, but it's also about inspiration and telling stories and taking people with you. So I think it goes together well.
And think about, you think about Confare and what it's adding back into society in terms of the visibility, in terms of the awards. You were going to ask me a question of why should people apply? Well, for all the reasons we gave. It's incredible to get that external recognition. It's very motivating for not only your leadership and for your teams, but for you as well, but also for the community. Because remember, we are an ecosystem and people thrive on that ecosystem. And the more we have, and the more we feed the ecosystem, the stronger it gets. And it's a community we want to really grow and make better.
Just let me take one step back to this patience, humility, listening we talked about. How much does this apply to this age of AI? I think it's not really an area where we talk about humble leaders or listening is very important.
But I'm going to play it differently to you. I think it's incredible because if you think about how much everyone is invested in AI, and I'm going to challenge, no one's got a return on investment yet, right? It's honestly. So think it's patience. If you want a return, it's going to come. It's patience. Humility is an incredibly important one because, people want immediate gratification out of AI. It's not going to happen, right? And then listening, so I go back to the fundamental principles of AI is just another transformation. And if we treat transformation that people come first, because people will be impacted. If you take the time to tell people and say, listen, this is where you are. This is where you're going to be after AI. Instead of just talking about the technology and what we're going to do and what the technology is going to deliver as value. If we don't take the people along with us, be it that they might not have a job, because that's also a reality, and I admit that, but also, if they don't have a job, what are you going to do to make sure that the person lands in the right place? So for me, AI is just another transformation that should be treated in exactly the same way as all other transformations. And that's why all three of those terms of patience, humility, and listening come into it, because they're all people-centric.
I agree with all that you said, but I'm afraid we will make the same mistakes as we always do in all the always did in all these transformations that happened. Yeah.
And it's human nature, right? And we always look back and say, but why? And it's incredible. Wasn't it Einstein that said, you can't solve the same problem with the same kind of thinking that created it? And yet, there we go. I agree.
We celebrate this milestone anniversary with the CIO Award, 15 years in Switzerland. What message would you like to leave for the community? What would you write in our guest book for this anniversary?
Well, I want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate your wife, Barbara, and your whole family for keeping this. This can't be easy, I must say. To keep this alive for 5 years is an achievement. 15 years is a huge milestone. And I think that even more, what you need to be even more proud of, and everyone else is that in those 15 years, it's continued to grow and add value. So may it go on for many, many more. I've been very blessed that I was introduced to it, and I don't know how. Someone nominated me. It is incredible how the world works, but I've been very grateful for it, and it's been nice to be part of that CIO community, and that's why I think it's important.
Thank you for that. I'm really looking forward to meet you again in September in Zurich at the
So much.
15th Swiss CIO Award. Cheers from Vienna and see you soon.
Ciao, Michael. Thank you very
Ciao.
much. Eh?